back to JM Lectures. This is the second subunit of the first unit of grade 9 chemistry, discoveries of the fundamental subatomic particles and the atomic nucleus. Now, after Dalton, a lot of discoveries were made about the atom. People were starting to get really curious and they started to do experiments and different trial and error processes, and they found out a lot about the atom. One of the earliest discoveries was the discovery about radioactivity. Scientists that contributed to this discovery were Wilhelm, Antoine, and Marie Curie. Realize I skipped their last names because I don't want to attempt to pronounce them, okay? Other discoveries were about the nucleus by Ernest Rutherford, Hans Geiger, and Ernest Marsden. Next were the electrons. Electrons were helped discovered by J.J. Thomson and Robert Millikan. And finally, neutrons were discovered by James Chadwick. Now, I'm not going to go into detail about how these scientists actually came about to find all these discoveries. If you want to read more, I recommend you check out pages 6 through 12 of the Ethiopian National Curriculum textbook. If you have a Telegram account, I will leave a link in my description box to my Telegram channel where I have all of the PDF versions of the Ethiopian National Curriculum textbooks. Okay, so it took a long time to discover all of these things. Let's go through what the final outcomes of these experiments were. So we now know that there's actually 3 subatomic particles, and we know that atoms can be broken down. So they're not indivisible, even though the name still means indivisible. They are divisible into these 3 subatomic particles: protons, neutrons, and electrons. Let's go through the properties of each of these subatomic particles individually. First, protons. An easy way to remember what the charge of a proton is starts with a P, so protons, positive. All right, so protons are positively charged. Be warned, don't use the same trick for neutrons. Neutrons are not negatively charged, but you can say neutrons have no charge, or a charge of 0. That leaves electrons, and electrons have negative charges. Right. What about their locations? Well, through the discoveries, especially with the contribution of Ernest Rutherford, we know that there is a dense central nucleus, which is a tiny part of the atom. I mean, atoms are tiny as they are. They're like nanometers small. But inside that atom, a tiny center is what we know as the nucleus, and it's very heavy and it's very dense compared to the rest of the atom. Protons and neutrons are both found in this central nucleus. So we know that protons are found in the nucleus, and neutrons are also found in the nucleus. That leaves electrons, and the best way to describe electrons is they're like found around a cloud around the nucleus. They're found in a cloud around a nucleus. So we'll say a cloud around the nucleus. Okay, so we know the locations of the 3. What about their charges in Coulomb? We know that protons are positive and electrons are negative, but what about their actual quantity, the actual amount of charge that they have? Well, protons have a charge of positive 1.602 times 10 to the power of minus 19 Coulomb. And you can guess, since electrons are exactly the opposite, all they are is the negative of 1.602 times 10 to the power of minus 19 Coulomb. Okay, that leaves neutrons. Neutrons have no charge, so similarly, neutrons have 0 Coulomb charge. What about the sizes? Well, electrons, they are tiny. They are so tiny, they're almost negligible. You don't even have to consider the size of electrons normally. But the size is, for the sake of reference, 9.109 times 10 to the power of minus 31 kilograms. They're so small, all right? Protons and neutrons have almost the same mass. They're much heavier than electrons, but it's still not that heavy. Neutrons have a weight of 1.675 times 10 to the power of minus 27 kg. Protons have a fairly similar weight of 1.673 times 10 to the power of minus 27 kg. Excuse my horrible handwriting, but I hope you get the point. These numbers, if you're going to use them in an exam or any form, they're probably going to be given to you, so I don't think you have to remember it. But just for the sake of reference, so you can clearly see what we know about protons, neutrons, and electrons. So just to recap, protons are positive, neutrons have no charge, electrons are negative. Protons and neutrons are found in a dense nucleus, while electrons orbit around this nucleus in like a cloud form. Protons and electrons have the same charge, the same amount of charge, but in opposite direction, while protons are being positive and electrons are negative. And protons and neutrons have almost the same weight, much heavier than electrons, whose weight is almost negligible. That is the end of the second subunit. I know it was pretty short, but that's because I didn't go into detail about how each of the subatomic particles were discovered. I truly recommend that you read up on it if you have the chance. Stay tuned for the third subunit of grade 9 chemistry.